I want you to imagine perfect military officer. He's tall, he's polite, his uniform is perfectly pressed. He says yes sir and no sir. He follows every rule in the book. Now, take that image, throw it in a blender, pour a bottle of whiskey on it, and set it on fire. What you have left is Gregory "Pappy" Boyington. Boyington was a disaster on paper. He had a massive debt problem. He had a drinking problem. He had a temper problem. He once wrestled a general at a party just to prove he could. By 1941, the Marine Corps was practically begging him to quit. They thought he was an embarrassment to the uniform. But Pappy Boyington had one redeeming quality that saved him from being kicked out. He was the best pilot they had ever seen. He could do things with an airplane that physics said shouldn't be possible. He understood aerodynamics like a scientist, but he flew like a barroom brawler. When the war in the Pacific turned ugly, the Marines realized they didn't need polite officers. They needed killers. They needed someone crazy enough to fly an oversized engine with wings called the F-4U Corsair into a swarm of Japanese Zeros. So, they gave him a squadron. But not just any squadron. They gave them the leftovers, the unassigned, the guys nobody else wanted. They were officially called VMF 214, but history knows them by the name they chose for themselves, the Black Sheep. Under Pappy's leadership, these misfits didn't just fight, they rampaged across the Pacific. Pappy famously said, "Show me a hero and I'll prove he's a bum." He wasn't a hero in the traditional sense. He was a pirate, and this is his story. Welcome to Valor and Heritage. Before he was a Marine legend, Pappy was a mercenary. In 1941, before the US officially entered the war, Boyington was broke. He owed money to everyone. So when he heard that a secret group called the American Volunteer Group, or AVG, better known as the Flying Tigers, was hiring pilots to fight for China, he signed up immediately. Why? Because they paid well. $600 a month plus a $500 bonus for every Japanese plane you shot down. That was a fortune back then. He resigned his commission in the Marines, a huge risk, and went to Burma. This is where he learned to fight. The Flying Tigers flew the P-40 Warhawk. It was a heavy, rugged plane with a shark mouth painted on the nose. The Japanese flew the A-6M-0, which was light, fast, and nimble. Most pilots tried to dogfight the Zero, turn for turn, and they died. Boyington realized that was suicide. He learned the boom and zoom tactic. You climb high, dive on the enemy, blast them with your heavy guns, and use your speed to escape. You never turn, you never play their game. He shot down 2 planes officially, though he claimed 6. He collected his bonus money, paid off his debts, and learned exactly how the Japanese pilots thought. When Pearl Harbor happened, he knew his country needed him. He rejoined the Marines. But the Marines were suspicious. They said, "You quit on us once, why should we take you back?" Plus, he broke his leg during a drunken party on the boat ride home. So when the war started, Pappy was parking cars in a garage in Seattle, limping around while his buddies were fighting. It took months of begging and letter writing to get back into the cockpit. Finally, in 1943, they sent him to the Solomon Islands. But they didn't give him a command. They made him a desk officer. They put the deadliest pilot in the world behind a typewriter. Big mistake. Fast forward to late 1943. The Solomon Islands campaign is a meat grinder. The Marines are losing pilots faster than they can replace them. There was a pool of replacement pilots sitting at the base in Espiritu Santo. These were guys who had arrived too late, or had been kicked out of other squadrons, or were recovering from injuries. They were orphans. Boyington saw an opportunity. He went to the commanding general and said, "Give me these guys. I'll make a squadron out of them." The general laughed. "Those guys? They're the dregs." Boyington said, "I'll take the dregs. Just give me planes." And that's how VMF 214 was born. They called themselves Boyington's Bastards at first, but a press officer said, "You can't print bastards in the newspaper." So they changed it to the Black Sheep. The logo was a black sheep shield, and because they were illegitimate children of the Corps, they added a black bar across the shield, the symbol of bastardy and heraldry. They wore it with pride. But they had a problem. They didn't have any planes. Pappy didn't care. He told his men, "We will borrow them." The Black Sheep would fly whatever planes were available on the runway. If another squadron landed and went to lunch, the Black Sheep would jump in their Corsairs and take off for a mission. They were scavengers. They flew planes that were held together with duct tape and prayers. It created a unique bond. Since they didn't have their planes, they didn't care about the machines. They cared about the men. Pappy was 31 years old. The other pilots were 19 or 20. To them, he was ancient. That's why they called him Pappy, or Gramps. His leadership style was unconventional. He didn't care about salutes. He didn't care about uniforms. He told them, "I don't care if you sleep in your plane. I don't care if you drink all night, but when you're in the air, you stick to my wing. If you leave my wing, I'll shoot you down myself." He wrestled with them in the mud. He drank with them. But in the air, he was the master. He taught them everything he learned in China. He turned those college dropouts into killers. We are about to take off on the deadliest streak in Marine Corps history. But before we engage the Zeros, I need you to join the formation. If you love stories of rebels who broke the rules to win the war, smash that subscribe button. We're building our own squadron of history lovers. Don't be a straggler. Join the Black Sheep. Now, guns up.
The F-4U Corsair was the perfect plane for Pappy. It was nicknamed the Whistling Death by the Japanese. It had a massive propeller, gull wings bent like a W, and 6.5 caliber machine guns. It was fast, 400 miles per hour. In September 1943, the Black Sheep went to war. Their first combat tour lasted only 6 weeks. In that time, they destroyed 47 Japanese planes. Pappy himself shot down 14. It was unheard of. The newspapers went crazy. The flying miscues, the convict squadron. Pappy's favorite trick was to taunt the Japanese on the radio. He spoke a little Japanese. He would get on the open frequency and shout insults. "Come up and fight, you cowards! Major Boyington is here!" He wanted them angry. He wanted them to make mistakes. One day, he circled the Japanese airfield at Kahili, their main base, and dared them to come up. 20 Zeros took the bait. Pappy and his wingmen shot down 3 of them and escaped before the rest could catch them. It was pure arrogance, and it worked. By December 1943, Pappy had 25 kills. He was 1 kill away from tying the all-time American record held by Eddie Rickenbacker from World War I. The pressure was on. The press was following him everywhere. He was exhausted. He was drinking heavily to sleep. He had tropical sores on his skin, but he wouldn't stop. He wanted that record. On January 3, 1944, he led a massive raid over Rabaul, the most heavily defended Japanese fortress in the Pacific. It was a hornet's nest. He knew the odds were bad, but Pappy didn't care about odds. He dove into a cloud of Zeros. He shot one down, kill number 26. He tied the record. Then he saw another one. He went for number 27. He got him. He broke the record. But he got tunnel vision. He stayed too long. Suddenly, his plane shuddered. His engine exploded. His gas tank caught fire. He was surrounded by enemy planes, burning and falling from the sky. He managed to bail out. He pulled his ripcord at 200 feet above the water. His wingman saw him go down. He reported back, "Pappy is gone." The Marine Corps declared him missing in action. Then they declared him dead. They awarded him the Medal of Honor posthumously after death. President Roosevelt gave it to Pappy's family. The newspapers wrote eulogies. The greatest pilot of the war is dead. But Pappy wasn't dead. He was picked up by a Japanese submarine.
For the next 20 months, he was a prisoner of war. His time in the POW camp was brutal. He was beaten regularly. He was starved. But ironically, the prison camp probably saved his life. It forced him to stop drinking. He got healthy, well, aside from the starvation. He became a leader for the other prisoners. He never told the Japanese he was a famous ace. He just said he was a regular pilot. In August 1945, the war ended. The prisoners were liberated. When Pappy walked out of that camp, the world was shocked. Pappy is alive. He came home to a hero's welcome. He went to the White House. President Truman, who had already given the medal to Pappy's family, got to shake his hand for real. Life after the war wasn't easy for Pappy. He struggled with alcohol again. He went through marriages and jobs. He wrote a book called Black Sheep that became a TV show. He was honest about his flaws. He never claimed to be a saint. He famously said, "I'm just a guy who wanted to fly." But to the men of the Black Sheep Squadron, he was everything. He took a bunch of outcasts and made them champions. He taught them that it doesn't matter what your record says or what people think of you. What matters is what you do when the canopy closes and the engine starts. He was the pirate of the Pacific, and he was one hell of a Marine. If you'd fly with Pappy, leave a comment, Black Sheep. Next time on Valor and Heritage, we're going deep underwater. We're going to tell the story of the USS Tang, the submarine that sank the most ships in history and eventually was sunk by its own torpedo. You have to hear it to believe it. I'm Valor. Wheels up.